Okay, good to welcome everyone. Welcome. Everybody sees a little bit of a different background than usual. This is my, dining room in my home in Lakewood. I am in quarantine. I have COVID, and it's the fourth day of the COVID. So, Baruch Hashem, we have the ability to communicate safely by Zoom, and I want to thank Hashem that I'm able to talk with you and to learn with you. Although I'm weak, but I'm weak, and I can't say that the preparation was that great, but we'll do the best that we can. I have Baruch Hashem, I have the luxury that I have a shul in my house, so I was able to go to the guest annex and sit outside of the shul and at least participate in the minyan from the back door. I must say the minyan were beautiful. Everybody did a wonderful job. Rich Leonard's Mishnayos and Gedalia's speaking and Gedalia's Mishnayos. And everybody did.
You tested positive?
Yes.
For Shalom.
Yeah. So we could learn from me, Moshe Meir ben Esther Fradel. I should get back my full strength quickly. The shir is sponsored by Abel Spry for Nachas from his whole family, by Shalom Fogel, Nishmas Rabbi Yaakov Zev ben Rabbi Yehuda Aryeh, Maris Rivka bas Rabbi Yaakov Zev, Maris Tzivya Miriam bas Rav Gad, Rabbi Yosef ben Sion ben Rabbi Yaakov Zev. Wait a second. So Shalom, the outside is tomorrow, right? Yeah.
Tonight.
Yeah. So that's I know because Zev is Zionov. So my good friend Jack Fogel, Rabbi Yaakov Zev ben Rabbi Yehuda Aryeh, his neshama should have a great aliyah. He should be a Meltz Yosher for the entire family. By Baruch Ian, Lili Nishmas Yaakov Chaim ben Abba, Esther Bas Gittel, Avram ben Shmuel HaKayin, by Yaakov Yumansky, with Akar Satayv to the Rav, the Zoom family, and Nachas from children and grandchildren, by Ed Saleh from London, and Joshua Rosenberg, a virtual Talmud. Okay, we are holding by Gufa on the bottom. Would be nice if I welcomed everybody. You see, I'm already out of it. We welcome in Saba, Ben Sion Cohn, Stephen Holtzman, Michal Akhtar, Irving Fishbaum, and Michal Avram Chavin, A.B. Spry, Yisrael Fisher, Eddie Chazan, Shalom Fogel, Mo Kushner, Barish Gesserman, Mel Zachter, Nachman Chapler, Moshe Lehman, Richard Rosenzweig, Chaim Braun. We are holding by Gufa 4 lines from the bottom of Menachem Umansky is now joining us. 4 lines from the bottom of Daf Mem Daled Amid Beis. So Gufa, Amar Ravim Bar Shmuel b'Shmei de Shmuel. So Ravim Bar Shmuel says the name is Shmuel. If Eddie sells a piece of land to AB without giving him any security, that means that AB is a speculator. And if the land is taken away, then losers, weepers. Eddie's not responsible. That's why AB paid, bottom dollar. He was speculating. Why anybody would speculate on Eddie? I don't know. maybe it was Purim, but the bottom line is that Abi bought karka from Eddie without security. Still, ein meyed lo yaleha. If Michal Avram comes and claims that the land was his, Abi cannot testify on Eddie's behalf. Now, you would say, why not? Even if Michal Avram would take it away from Eddie, even if Michal Avram would take it away from Abi, Eddie wouldn't be responsible because Eddie sold it to him without security. So it doesn't seem to be that he has any vested interest. But we learned he does have a vested interest. Because if Eddie owed money to Mel, he would be able to tell Mel to take the land from Abi. But that's only if it originally was his. So he has a vested interest to say that it was his and that it wasn't Michal Avram's. So the Gemara says, but still, why does Eddie have a vested interest? Hechi dami. If Eddie has other land, so then Mel is not going to take it from Abi anyway. Mel is going to take the available land. You don't go to a lekuchas, you don't go to a buyer and take it away from the buyer if there's nechasim b'nei chayrin, if there's available land. So the Mel is going to come to him and is not going to bother Abi. So again, Eddie doesn't have a vested interest. And if Eddie doesn't have any other land, so then he still doesn't have a vested interest, because if Mel doesn't take it away from Abi, there's nothing to take from Eddie anyway. So again, he doesn't. What does he care? Mel is not going to get anything from him anyway, whether it is by Abi or whether it isn't by Abi. So again, Eddie doesn't have a vested interest. Says the Gemara, no. He doesn't have any other land, but he doesn't want Mel to, have hard feelings on him that he didn't pay him. And therefore, he wants it to be available by Abi and not go to Michal Avram, so that Eddie shouldn't have any tightness. I don't want to be in Mel's eyes like a wicked debtor, v'lo yishalim, that doesn't pay. So the Gemara says, so he would be willing to, he would be willing. What are you saying now? He has a vested interest that he has a vested interest that Mel should take it away from Abi. So then Abi will have a tie on him. Says the Gemara, Saif legabi idach nami loiva rasha v'lo yishalamu. Then what is he going to have a vested interest that it should be available for Mel to take it away because he owed Mel the money, and he's going to take it away from Abi, who's now going to have a tine on him that he sold him a bum deal. Says the Gemara, no, he's not worried about Abi. Because he'll tell Abi, why do you think you got it for bottom dollar? Why do you think you got it for 20 cents on the dollar? That's why he sold it to you without security, because it was a gamble. Okay, you gambled, you lost. So he's not worried about Abi. He's more worried about Mel. A lot of people just joined us. As I see Mordechai Sultan, it's good to see you, Mordechai. We should see you much more often. Mark Frankel, Dr. Block, Yitzi Fuchs, Chaim Braun, Rabbi Kranz, Naftali Jablin. If you're just joining us, We are holding on Daf Mem Hey Amud Aleph, and we're holding 6 lines from the top. 6 lines from the top of Daf Mem Hey Amud Aleph, and as I've mentioned a little earlier, you see a different background here. This is the dining room of my home, as I am officially I'm officially branded with COVID, so I'm in quarantine now, in the 4th day of quarantine. So, but don't worry, it's not catchy. I have an anti-COVID scrambler on my Zoom. It's not catchy. I paid a little extra mark that it should cover even Bela Kinwid, but it covers even Bela Kinwid.
Thank you, Rabbi Rafur Shlomo.
Thank you.
Rafur Shlomo, Rabbi.
Thank you.
Shlomo, Rabbi.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam shehakol niyeh b'dvaro. Machriz Rava, as we welcome in Yitzi Muller. Yitzi Muller is officially our 30th Zoomer of the evening. Machriz Rava declared, V'isei Rapapa, others say it was Rapapa that made this announcement, D'solkin li'elah, those that travel up to Eretz Yisrael, U'dinachsin l'sata, and those that travel down to Bavel. Hi Bar Yisrael, if let's say, Eddie, the Zavan lechamra Yisrael chavre, Eddie sells a donkey to his friend Berish. And what happens? V'ka'osi Akim, and Ivan, the guy comes, v'anis le'minei, and seizes it from Berish. And Ivan claims that it's really his donkey. Now, Lamais is, Ivan took it away. He didn't go through due process. So therefore, Eddie doesn't have to reimburse Berish. But the Gemara tells us, Dinahu, it is the law, demaftzele minei, that he should try legal means to extract the donkey away from Ivan to return it to Berish. But that's only if Berish doesn't admit that this was obviously a donkey from Eddie's flock. But if he recognizes that it's Eddie's stock, so then Eddie doesn't have any responsibility, because then it's clear that the guy was just being a guy. If he recognizes it's from Eddie's flock, like. It's only if he didn't seize the donkey and the saddle. But if he took the donkey and he took Berish's own saddle, Berish has a saddle with his crest upon it. Obviously, Berish knows that the donkey then is a thief, because he stole even his saddle. Like, Ameimer says the truth of the matter is Eddie has no responsibility, because a guy is known to be a thief, and therefore we assume that the guy was just being abandoned. Afilu leka kolani loy. Even without any of these proofs, Eddie is not bound to try to recover it for Berish. My timer, what's the reason? Because Meida Yada, we know the stam oived kechavim, a stam pagan, anasu, is a bandit. Shenemra asher PM diber shav, their mouths speak vanity, v'yaminam yamin sheker, and their right is a right of falsehood. Now the Mishnah teaches us, if I'm speaking a little haltingly, it's only because it's a little bit hard for me, so bear with me if it's a little halting. So we welcome in Shelley, who just joined us. It's great to have you, Shelley. I think I see, is that Shimon Deer? Yeah, Shimon Deer. Shimon, got to be a little bit more regular. Ilya Shutman is just joining us for our 32nd Zoomer of the evening. If you're just joining us in progress, we are on Mem He Amud Aleph. We are 8 lines from the bottom. Now, before we learn this inside, I want to just talk to you a little bit about, when a craftsman, like let's say, you're a computer repairman, and you have a computer. So the Mishnah said that you can't claim it's yours because you have it. Because people normally give you computers to fix. So the fact that you have it isn't proof that it's yours. So the Gemara is going to analyze this in great detail. One of the questions the Gemara is going to say is, if let's see, who looks like a good computer repairman? Eddie. Doesn't he have that look, has a look of an apple on his face. So anyway, so let's say Mark doesn't trust Eddie. He's learned already the hard way. So he gives his expensive computer to Eddie in front of 2 witnesses. Can Eddie claim he returned it to him already? Or does he have to return it to him in front of witnesses? The nafkamina would be as if Mark comes in and says, Eddie, could I have my computer? And Eddie says, what are you talking about, Mark? I gave it to you yesterday. So if he has to return it in front of two witnesses, if he doesn't have those 2 witnesses, so then Mark could say either return it to me or pay me for it. So that's one of the variables we're going to talk. We're going to talk about a lot of variables over here. So let's see it inside. Umanein loy chazaka. A craftsman, like in this case, the well-known computer expert, Eddie Chazan, Ein loy chazaka. He doesn't have a chazaka. Amar Rabba, loy shanu ela shemasa loy be'edim. Oh, now Rabba says something very interesting. That's only if Mark gave him the computer with witnesses. Aval masa loy shaloi be'edim. If Mark was naive enough to give something to Eddie without witnesses, so mitoch sheyachal. Now, if it's talking about a case that when Mark comes in the shop, his computer isn't in the shop. So mitoch sheyachal leimalei, since he could tell Mark, lo haya dvar ma'olam, that's what we call in Shas talk, lahadam. It never happened that you gave me your computer. Never happened. What are you talking about? You have delusions. Ki amalei nami lekuchi biyadi. If he tells Mark, yeah, you gave it to me, but I made you an offer to buy it, and you sold it to me, then mehemen. Now that's a huge thing that Rabba is saying. Rabba is saying that if Mark just left his computer, if Mark was silly enough to leave his computer by Eddie, and he comes in the store and the computer is not there, so if he didn't give it to Eddie with witnesses, since Eddie could say, I never saw your computer, and he would be believed. So he's also believed to say that he bought it. Amalei Abayas, so Abayas says, Ihachi afilu be'edim nami. Even if Mark gave it in front of Michal and Irving, since Eddie could claim, well, I already gave it to you yesterday. Says Rabba, no, Mark, no. If Mark gave it to Eddie with witnesses, Eddie can't say, I returned it to you. He has to return it to him with witnesses. So there he doesn't have a migu. Amalei Rabba says, Mi Savrit, do you think Hamafkid Eitzel Chaveiroi Be'edim, that if you deposit something by Eddie with witnesses, Einot Tzach La'achzoloi Be'edim, you think that Eddie could claim I returned it to you without witnesses? Lo, not so. If he deposited, if Mark was smart enough to deposit it by Eddie with witnesses, then Eddie would have to have witnesses that he returned it to him. And therefore Eddie can't claim that I bought it because Migu, I could have said I already returned it. Because if he said I already returned it, Mark will say, where's the witnesses? So, we learned a lot of information over here. Rabba says that the only time we say that an uman doesn't have a chazaka is where Mark gave Eddie the computer with Adam. If he gave Eddie the computer with Adam, and then Mark says, where's my computer? And Eddie says, I bought it from you. I have it. I bought it from you. So then Mark will say, what do you mean you bought it from me? You're a computer programmer. You have it because I gave it to you to fix it. But that's only where he gave it to him with witnesses. If he gave it to him without witnesses, and the computer is not in the shop. This is a key thing. So Eddie has a migu that he could say, I don't have your computer. So he's believed to say, I bought it. Now, what the case that Rabba doesn't say outright is what would be if Mark comes into the shop and the computer is on the table. And he says, give me my computer. And Eddie says, I bought it from you. So there also it's mashma that Eddie's not believed. Because Omen ain't like Chazaka. What do you mean you bought it from me? It's there because you're a computer repairman. And there he doesn't have a migud to say that it never happened. Lahadam, because the computer is sitting there. So I'm giving you all these variables because of the next piece of Gemara. Let's look at it inside. Meisvei Abaya. So Abaya asks Rabba, Ra Avdoi Biyad Uman. If Eddie sees I believe, Rabbi say, we have one of our Talmidim who hasn't been on for a while, Yaakov Smilowitz. Yaakov, I want to welcome you warmly to the shir on behalf of everyone. It's really, really, really wonderful to have you. And we should be able to see you more often. And we welcome in Gedalia, Gedalia, great speech this morning about Ayeka and Eicha, And
You heard it?
I heard it, sure.
Really? Wow.
Yeah, it was a great speech.
I'm honored.
I heard
From the best.
I heard your laning also, top notch. I'm not feeling so top notch, but everything else was top notch. It really was not a pleasant thing to be here but not be able to join everybody. But that friendship demands that you don't want to get anybody sick. So in the schus of my not coming down to Shulam Yetz Hashem, my wife shouldn't get sick. So anyway, Meisvei Abaya, Ra Avdoi Biyaduman. If, let's say, Eddie sees his Eved, excuse me, not Eddie, Mark sees his Eved in the hands of Eddie. Eddie is, besides being in the computer business, he's also in the slave trade. You know Eddie. We know why Eddie is always on the run. So Ra Abdai Biyaduman, he's still living in the pre-Abraham Lincoln era. So, as is Mark. So Ra Avdai Biyaduman, he sees his Eved in Abi's hands. So notice over here, he sees it in Eddie's hands. The Talisa Biad Kaivis, and Eddie is also a laundroman, and his cloak by Eddie. Amalai, he says to him, Mativai etzlacha. What's it doing by you? So Eddie, Eddie, Atamachartali, you sold me the slave, you sold me the cloak. Atanasatabli b'matana, you gave it to me as a gift. Loy amar klum. Loy amar klum. Now here, why loy amar klum? Because he doesn't even have amigo. He can't say lahadam. Mark saw it there. Can't say lahadam. However, b'fonai amarti loy lemachroi v'litna loy b'matana. The Gemara is going to explain in a minute that this is talking about where instead of finding it by Eddie, he finds it by Abi. And Abi is not a craftsman. Abi is not a washer. So if he asks him, if in that case, where he asks Abi, what's my thing doing by you? And Abi says, Ata mechartali, Ata lasatali, excuse me, and Abi says, B'fanei amartaloi lemachroi v'litnaloi, in front of me you told Eddie to sell it to me, or to give it to me as a gift, then Dvar of Kayamin. Now, of course, that's obvious, because Abi is not a craftsman. So why does he have it? So his possession of it would allow him to say that he bought it straight from Mark. And therefore, if he says that you told Eddie to sell it to me or give it to me a gift, he's believed. And that's what the Gemara explains. Maishna Reisha, Maishna Seifa. Why is Eddie not believed, but Abi is? Amar Rava Seifa b'yoytze mitachs yedei acher. The Seifa is talking about where he didn't find it by Eddie, he found it by Abi. Now, Abi is not a person that works with slaves or cleans cloaks. The Ka'amalei Achar, and Abi says, "B'fonei amarta l'machroi v'litna b'matana." In my presence, you told Eddie to sell it to me, or to give it to me as a gift. He's believed. Migu the ibay amalei minach savinte. since he would be believed to say that Mark sold it directly to him, because otherwise, why does he have it? Ki amalei nami, when he says, "B'fani amartaloi l'makroi dvar kayon," in front of me, you told him to sell it, he's believed. Umehem. So now what does this have to do with the price of tea in China? Why did we bring all of this up? This is the hook now. Ketani mias reisha ra. It's talking about, in the reisha, that Mark saw the Eved by Eddie. Hechidami. If there are witnesses that he gave it to Eddie, then you don't need Ra. Lamali Ra, Nasi Edim Minishka. Elalav, it must be the Leka Edim. It must be that there's no witnesses. Right? And even though there's no witnesses, but if he sees it there, he could grab it. So I would think that this would be consistent with everything that I said before. Because since he sees it, Eddie doesn't have a claim. But the Gemara now is learning different than I said. The Gemara is learning that in the event, because you see, if the Eilam will turn to Memhei Amid Aleph for a second. Over there, Rabbah says, by the two dots, Amar Rabbah loy shanu el shemasa loy be'edim. Aval masa loy shaloi be'edim. If he gives it to him without edim, then the repairman, Eddie, is believed to say that he bought it. Mitoich sheyachal leima loy hayad dvar ma'olam. Now, so here it's mashma from the Gemara that Rabbi is saying this even if the item, the Eved, the cloak, the computer in the case that I gave earlier, is sitting there in the shop. Because if it's talking about where it's not sitting in the shop, so Rabbi should have said a bigger chiddush. Amar Rabbi lo shanu ela shera avalo ra alai. It doesn't say that. He says lo shanu shemasalei be'edim. Aval masalei shalei be'edim. But if he gave it to him without witnesses, so mitoich sheyachal leimalei, he could tell him lo hayadvar me'olam. So here it seems to be that lo hayadvar me'olam, he could still say even if it's there. This is what the Rashbam says. If everybody will look at the Rashbam, the Rashbam is eight lines from the bottom on Memhei Amid Aleph, towards the end of the line. Elafilu imro akshav edim atalis biyad ha'omen. Even if we see the computer by Eddie, oishetofes by bifanenu, still still, Eddie could claim, this is Rabba's contention, Eddie could claim, Mark, you didn't give me this computer. Shalamasartali, you didn't give it to me. Avalachar Masali, Irving gave it to me. Shemachar Tolai, you sold it to Irving and he gave it to me. V'hur Machrali. So therefore, even if he says that you sold it to me, he's believed. So this is a real big chiddush that Rabbah is saying. So I misrepresented Rabbah. This is a real big chiddush what Rabbah is saying. Rabbah is saying that the only safety that Mark has is if Mark gives it to Eddie with Adam. If Mark gives it to Eddie without Adam, and he comes into the shop and Eddie's and Mark's spiffy computer, Mark has a spiffy computer with all kinds of gadgets, right? Mark's computer is sitting on Eddie's desk. Eddie can say, I bought it from you. Migu, that he could say, you didn't give it to me. I got it from Irving, who bought it from you. So on this, the Gemara asks now that from here we see not that way. Because Ketani Mia, in this case it says that when Mark gave Eddie the slave, or Mark gave Eddie the cloak, so it says Ra. It says that, and he sees it there. So and Eddie says, I bought it from you. So it says Eddie is not believed. Now heichi dami. If Mark has witnesses, then lamali Ra. He doesn't even have to see it there. Even if he doesn't see it there, he just produces the witnesses that Eddie has his thing. Neisi Adam and Ishka. Elalav deleka Adam. There's no witnesses. Yet, the Chira, when he sees it in Eddie's possession, Mia Tofislay. And Eddie cannot claim, I bought it from you, because since he's craftsman, the fact that it's in his possession doesn't mean anything. So the Gemara says, lie. It's not a refutation of Rabbah. L'olam de'ika Adam. It's talking about where there are witnesses, and even though Mark has witnesses that he deposited it by Eddie, he has to see it there. Because if he didn't see it there, Eddie could say, I returned it to you. Says Gemara, but Rabbah said if you give it with Adam, you have to return it with Adam. You have to return it with witnesses. On that aspect, I retract it. So again, Rabbah is saying a huge chiddush over here, that if Mark gave his computer to Eddie to fix, but Mark was foolish enough, and before he was silly, but he's also foolish. Mark was foolish enough. You're following, Mark? Mark was foolish enough to give him the computer without witnesses, and Mark comes into the shop and sees the computer. Eddie could still claim, I bought it from you. Because he has a migu that he could say, you never gave it to me. I got it from Irving, who bought it from you. And therefore he's believed to say that he bought it from you. Mark, didn't I tell you? Be very careful who you deal with. Now, says the Gemara, it's a tricky, this Rabbi said it's a tricky piece of Gemara. Masiv Rava l'siyuei l'Rabba. Rava asks a question to bring a proof to Rabbah. Hanoising talisei l'uman. If let's say Mark gives his talis to Eddie, who is also a master Torah fixer. So he gives his, Mark, you wearing a Torah? Mark, you wearing a Torah on your talus? No, okay. So he had a different problem. He had a rip in his talus. And he gave it to Eddie to fix. Eddie is also a amazing seamstress. So Anoisin Talisay Lumen, he gives his talus to Eddie to fix. Umen Aimer Shtayim Kutzatztali. And Eddie says, you promised me 2 dinner. V'ala Aimer, and Mark says, Le Kutzatz Yiloch Ela Achas. I only promised you 1 dinner. Kolzman Shat Talus Biyad Umen. As long as Eddie still has the talus, al balabayis lo birai, then Mark has to prove that he only made up 1. Nos naloi bizmanai, if he delivered to him and he asked him for the money on time, so the din is that if you ask for the money on time, we believe the employee with a shvua. So nishba v'noitel, Eddie swears and he gets 2. Ober's manai, if he asks him later, not when it was due, when the employer is not busy, then then if Eddie wants 2, he's taking the money from Mark, he has to prove it. Mark only has to give him 1. Now, but as long as Eddie has the talus, he could ask for 2. Because Eddie has a migu that he could say the talus is his. So, hechidami, if there are witnesses, so then we'll ask the witnesses what amount they made up. Lirze edim my comrade. Ella, it must be lav deleka edim, where there's no witnesses. And yet, even though Mark sees the talus right there, the Ketani Umin Mehemen, we say that Eddie is believed. Why? Because he could say that he bought the talus, so he's believed to ask as much of the value of the talus. Says, well, no, it's no raya to Rab. There's no witnesses. But v'hu delayra, it's talking about a case where the talus wasn't in the shop. So there, since there's no Eidim, and the talus wasn't in the shop, everybody agrees that Eddie could say, lahadam, you never gave me the talus. Since Eddie could say, you never gave me the talus, he's believed up to the value of the talus that Mark owes him the money. But maybe, Einochanami, if the talus was there, maybe he can't claim that it's his talus, that he got it from Irving who bought it from Mark. Maybe he can't claim that. So it's no raya to Rabbah. We're just going to pause a moment here to turn over the channel.